I'm ready to cast this pod.
We are casting.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dan. Oh, happy birthday to you. Oh, happy birthday, my friend. Happy birthday, Dan.
I feel so loved. And slightly
great.
aroused. Okay.
So what would be a better way to celebrate the beginning of your 41st
Good question.
year of life
41st
on this
year,
planet,
completion of 40 years.
right?
Yeah.
Then
It actually happens
casting this pod.
in 38 minutes, officially.
All right.
Yeah, but, you know, it's the right day.
Okay, I take it all back then.
Okay.
Right?
We're introducing another episode, and I think we have to apologize before we introduce it, right?
Slight delay.
We're getting old and tired.
You especially are getting
Yes,
old, and
especially.
also like we start again training, and the madman in charge of this whole shenanigan is murdering us with exercises.
We're doing
and
leg day every day, all day.
yes, so it's leg month, and our legs are so tired that our brains cannot think, and our mouths cannot utter
Exactly.
beautiful words
Exactly.
for the podcast. So
We've already recorded the episode months ago, but
Yes.
we couldn't sit down and do a 2-minute intro.
well, which probably says also that like we're making up excuses. We're just lame.
Yeah.
Like, we cannot
A little lame.
blame it on the course.
A little tired.
But we are tired, but excited to be back on the island.
Mhm.
Excited to do all this again, and excited now in these last few minutes to actually go back to doing the podcast.
Yeah, I think
So-
we're breaking ourselves in.
Yes.
We're going to get back into a flow.
Exactly. Give us a break, guys. Like
Jeez.
give us some time.
So
give
many
us some
complaints.
space. So you want to introduce the Marvel that we're doing today?
The Marvel,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
We have a
The
good-
Holy Man.
Yeah, the third in our member of the Three Amigos,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
He's a good friend of ours. We had him on to talk about a subject that maybe is overlooked sometimes in spiritual life.
Right. Because people think they can bypass it, and
Mhm.
actually it's the core of spiritual life. I'm
It's like
afraid.
it's like the prerequisite in some ways.
Exactly. That's-
Yeah.
Discipline.
Discipline.
And yeah, who better than Laurence? Like literally, as I was saying, a holy man, like kind of a pope, like
Uh-huh.
how to describe this great person? Like you will find out, but he's a person that is so in touch with himself, so respectful of his own rhythms, and at the same time so capable of forcing himself to do things and to behave. Like he's a continuous source of inspiration for.
Yeah, I think he's been a virgin until 38. I don't think he's eaten sugar ever.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Like we were discussing alcohol with him at some stage, and we realized that he didn't exactly know what it was.
Yeah. We don't know where he's been living all these years, but we're lucky to have him in our lives.
Yes, absolutely.
So some things that we talked about, just to give you guys a little taste. Why Lawrence is uniquely qualified to speak about the need for discipline. You know, we can
Right.
get into his history a little bit. Working with primordial desires. I like
Yes.
that term.
Yes,
That was cool.
True.
Yeah.
He surprised us with a lot of really cool terms. I think he managed to prepare the episode very well, like pretending to come here very nonchalantly, but
Yeah.
actually he was very prepared.
Well,
Right?
he's the pro. He's been on several podcasts, or he's had a podcast. He
yeah,
knows what
he's
he's
a
doing.
sneaky little
Yeah.
motherfucker. Like he knew exactly what he was doing, like, and pretended to be naive about it, and then he sobered up for the episode and all of that.
You will also hear us talking about working with the mind's need to seek stimulation.
Right.
Working the difference between men and women's struggles at different stages of chi building, because they can be a little bit different.
Right, and he's aware of that.
He's very aware, yeah. And then also the hierarchy of needs and spiritual life, how those two things might fit together.
Beautiful.
Just a little
Yes.
taste.
Once again, this was an episode that we recorded a
Last-
couple of months ago, like
yeah,
3
last
months,
semester.
4 months ago now, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And so please be forgiving of the quality of the sound, which maybe in the future will improve. We're not so sure about it, but like for now it's still what it is. But we do sincerely hope you will nonetheless enjoy this other little gem that we're tossing your way out of our magnanimous. Magnanimity.
Great.
Is that the word?
Yeah, let's stop there while we're ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm Dan Etmacher.
Yeah, I'm Girolamo Marri.
And this is
Alchemy on the Island. Shit, sorry.
Join us on the show in the world on alchemy.
You've been on so many podcasts. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
So we've got Laurence. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah. So I guess for the last 20 odd years, I've been a healthcare practitioner, like a naturopath, firstly.
Cool.
And I got into that because of the human potential, I think. That it became clear to me that as humans, we're able to do extraordinary things. And from a health perspective, that is certainly one of the first barriers that block people from achieving things, right? I wasn't someone that struggled with health issues myself. So for a long time, when I started becoming a healthcare practitioner through university, I was wondering why the hell I was doing it, because most people are there to fix themselves. They're there because they'd had experiences with healthcare practitioners and it fixed their gut disorders or their reproductive disorders or whatever else. And that shit kind of bored me a little bit, to be honest, because to me, I saw health as a foundation, as the first step in personal evolution.
Yeah, so one part of a much bigger journey.
Completely. And then, I guess to cut to the chase, when I was reading one of Damo's books, he framed up something similar, and I thought, my God, this is exactly where I was sort of coming from. But that perspective, certainly in healthcare, it just looks to get you to a state of disease-free. Even in complementary healthcare, it's like people being healthy enough. Looking at the point of when you then go, okay, well, I'm healthy and functioning well. How do you get to that, icing on the cake aspect, where you can start to move towards spiritual evolution and closer to self and enhance the efficiency and ability of you as a human being and everything else that we're capable of? No one's really talking about that, right? And so you come across Damo's book and you're like, this is awesome. He ties that in along that same process. And obviously he's focused more on that icing on the cake aspect, on the spiritual development.
He almost takes the health element as a starting point, almost which is something he says very clearly. First you need to fix your health. Your health needs to be good, and then you can actually put the practice on top of that.
Totally.
And I think, in many ways, it's not a good marketing point, because the majority of people who get into these things,
including myself,
just care about they want to fix their health. Like a lot of people go and do any physical activity, mental activity, because they have a deficiency that they want to cure, not because they want to improve on something that is already working. So they want to fix their health, they want to fix their psychology, they want to fix whatever, their diet or their mood or something. And instead what we are told is, well, you kind of have to fix that more or less before, or at least in the early stages, and then all the real practice begins, which is,
I think about it like a hierarchy of needs almost, in the sense that if you're suffering from pain or poor health issues, whatever that might be, getting to the loftier goals of union with self or spiritual development, while I guess that might go hand in hand with the type of people that suffer from health complaints, it's sort of, you're dealing with the stuff in front of you first. I mean, as you know, Dan, it's like, that's nice. But for most people, it's going to be, I'm dealing with the fact that I'm going crazy because I can't sleep, or I've got riddled with anxiety, or I can't think properly, or I can't get out of bed, I'm fatigued, or I'm in so much pain, my joints are aching, I can't walk up the stairs, whatever it might be. The idea of quietening the mind, moving towards stillness and cultivation of self is great, but these people are dealing with shit every day that it's like, so it's kind of like the hierarchy of needs. And so for me, the way I saw it is like, as you were saying, like helping people get to that base point is kind of, I guess, where I came from.
Yep. Your origin story.
And and then it's like, this is teaching us how to go from that base point to,
Infinity and beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, as a disclaimer, I would not say we're all at that base point.
No.
I don't feel like I'm at that base point. I don't feel my psychology is totally sorted. I don't feel my health is sorted. I don't think, like...
Well, I think the base point is like good enough. It's not,
of course,
It's not 100%. It's enough.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And I think it is a thing that people that start studying what we are studying, that have some of these issues to a higher degree, to a higher level, they struggle quite a lot. And you actually, not you, so generic you struggle a lot with getting the basic results or anything. Like, it takes you much, much longer to get results if you're not like at a decent base point. And on the other hand, when you get people that are at a decent base point, like that bastard that lives in the other room in our house, like what's his name, Brad, like he arrives and he's like young and relaxed and shit, has a good mindset, like he's been fixing his body all his life, so he's blah, 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 blah. He comes in, like he started like 2 months ago, and he's been through the process and fucking hell already, like exploring the higher realms of above, like, and I hate him. But which is also setting me back because I'm full of hate and envy for everyone who's doing better than I am. So I might have to sort that out as well. Anyway.
Okay, so that brings us to our main topic of resisting desires or releasing against them. The role of discipline in practice.
Right. And we want to also right away ask you, why are you talking about? Why did you choose this as a topic for your?
Because I didn't choose the topic.
You chose this.
Why did we choose this for you?
Why did we choose this for you?
You're probably better at explaining that than me.
What do you want us to explain?
From what you've told me.
Because you don't remember. Because I'm
an Australian, and it is a right to have a casual relationship with good times and alcohol and some level of consciousness. And I guess, and to be also in Bali, an Australian in Bali, I mean, fuck, I think I'm doing okay, to be fair.
Oh, you're doing fantastic.
Like,
which is all relative. You're really good considering what we see in the streets, but like in the little circle of nerds that we spend time with, you're kind of, no, you're not kind of, like, I will say you're a rebel. You're not, like, you're still a very respectable person, but you have a knowledge, at least by affinity, in regards of
with good times,
and all of that,
so, including eating sugar at 10:30 p.m.
It's a good time. You got to eat sugar after dark. Otherwise, the gremlins come out. So I think that essentially, it's very. Demo talks about this a bit. Like it obviously, when we're cultivating, we're building chi, and it builds the desires. And there's desires, I guess, as we were talking about before, is a huge spectrum. There's the obvious ones, but then there's the desire, where like I feel like a drink, or I would like a cake, or I want to check out social media or shop or whatever it might be for basic desires. And I think that
can I slow you down a little bit?
Yeah.
I think people may not understand how that works.
For
how
sure.
Building energy, building chi, maybe increases desires.
Yes, so let's talk about it now. Yeah, it's probably a good point.
Yeah.
So I guess, from what I understand, and you understand better, that as we build more chi and we put more energy in the system, it's going
specifically the lower dantian, it's lower energy center.
Yeah, it's going to fire up whatever is running through the system in general. And when I say system, I guess I'm talking about mind.
Yeah, psychology.
And so if we take away from desires for a second, if I am, or if someone is like a predisposed to anxious, obsessive thoughts, or an overactive mind, and then we put more power in that system, more chi in that system, and juice it up, then that's going to potentially get amplified.
Which is also a great sales pitch. with the practice.
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing really well.
But honestly, it really connects well with what we were saying before. That like you kind of need to have your mind sorted, your things sorted before you start pumping energy in the system, because like you I mean, you're an angry beast, like and you start putting chi like in the mix, like you're gonna fire.
Yeah, fuel on the fire, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that is, I guess, one of the first barriers that is discussed, is that in the energetic process, from what I understand, is one of the first places that the deviations could occur in terms of it will be desires. Obviously, as we progress through the process, then there's other barriers and challenges that come up. But as we build more energy and it's starting lower in the body, the first energetic center that will have a barrier, a hurdle, a challenge to overcome will be desires.
Yeah.
And so, in reference to what I was saying before, is that the desires, I mean, can be obvious desires, but then they can be also the more subtle desires of the way that our mind or state of being likes to gravitate towards, maybe, if I was to put it that way, in terms of what sparks my interest, what gets me moving. Maybe to talk in, like, this isn't totally true, but I guess what sparks the dopamine hit, you know?
Right.
Like, whatever that could be for people.
Right. And I think it's interesting that you're making a distinction between certain kinds of desires and others, because like we're often told about the base desires, like the more primeval, is that the word? Primordial. Thank you. Sorry, primordial desires, more basic ones like sex, power, food, and these things, and these are the first one that generally one encounters, because if I understand correctly, like they're more connected to the lower parts of our body, and that's where the essence is stored, like near the perineum and stuff, and we go and build energy right next door to that, like in the lower abdomen. And this is also what causes, what creates a difference, a slight difference in the practice for men and for women, because women have their essence divided in two areas, like near the perineum and near the breast, while men have their essence near down there.
It's all right there.
So like men tend to struggle more at the beginning when they're building the first layer of energy, let's call it, for the first stage of energy over there, and then women have a little bit more struggles when we actually work more around the chest area, because that's when it goes and potentially upsets their other storage part of the essence jing, which is close to the heart area, so close to the emotional center, and thus they seem to understand they have more issues with dealing with the controlling their emotions and putting them in their place, and that sort of creates issues with the panic with the practice, while men more or less they're emotionless, like wholehearted. in this frame of mind.
Stereotypes, right?
Yeah,
they don't always fit.
Yeah.
But
like,
they seem to have a pattern.
And I think that's nicely explained in terms of that energetic structure, that men, it's going to disrupt, like those base desires are more likely to disrupt the consolidation and the gathering of that chi and that density and the jing in that lower region, where for women, to circle back to what you were saying, it's more going to be the emotions that are going to disrupt the consolidation.
Right. Thank you for clarifying. So basically it's a circle, right? Like if you build more chi, the more you build chi, the more you upset your desire center, let's call it like this. You have more desires, and that like in turn like makes you build less chi, like everything is more scattered. How does it work?
I think that's pretty much how it works, isn't it? It's going to create more temptation. It's going to potentially amplify those desires, and then execution or following of those desires is going to deplete the chi and the consolidation, right? So it's one step forward, two steps forward, one step back.
Yeah, I also guess because like if the mind is moved and stirred by the desires and all of that, it cannot be attentive, quiet, devoid of intention and all of that, and these are prerequisites to build more chi. So like the mind that is moving too much does not build. It builds in the first stages you can do, but past a certain level you need to have your mind that is not thinking about cake all the time, otherwise you don't build. That's
Yeah.
fucking me up. So this morning, for example, there was this old beautiful talk of Demo, which was touching upon this subject once again, and I was thinking burgers. Like I kept because like the other British Australian, Mark had mentioned that we were gonna go to try this new burger joint lunch, and it was good, and it's really good, like for the past few days, and like for an hour today before we finished, like I was just thinking burger, and then I was thinking, my cheese, not happening, and burgers, not happening.
But that happens, right? Like when you're doing the practice, sometimes, and certainly, like I noticed last year, like I'd be doing the practice, and then halfway through, I'd be like, I could kill for a beer.
Yeah.
And you just like then there, I guess those less base desires. Oh, that's not kind of right. Like they're still kind of coming from base desire. Like you're just wanting the stimulation.
Right.
You know, it's the sugar or it's the alcohol or it's like whatever's going to give you that hit. And it pops up, right? And you just think, I could really go cake, or I could go burger, or
or burger and cake and beer. But and this how so this explains why discipline has a point, exists. It's not like what many people seem to understand when thinking about what we do or similar practices, stuff like just a self-imposed nonsense punishment, right? Like you're not like devoiding yourself of the things that you like and that you want because right, like how does it work? Like
before we go there, I want to make sure we've covered what we've already talked about thoroughly enough.
Sure.
So we're getting into like, well, how do we work with desires, right?
Right.
Discipline's one way we work with. Before we get there, we talked about Jing. We have not defined what Jing is, right? We talked about consolidation. We don't know what we're consolidating, so we just want to cover it a little bit so people can kind of follow along.
Right.
Right.
So the damn police.
The police is here. So just in my mind, the clearest thing is like a desire is like a ripple in the ocean, and it disturbs the mind, and it disturbs the Jing. And the Jing is like most easily defined as their essence. It's that area for men around the perineum. So when that rock gets dropped in the clear lake, it ripples, and there's movement, and there's distraction, and there's not clear, pure attention, and there's not a sense of stilling and calmness. And the idea with the practice is once we have stillness in the mind, clear attention, and also the Jing starts to consolidate over time, then we start to produce much more Qi. So it's all sort of in service. The stilling is in service of producing Qi, which is what we're really working on in the beginning years of the practice. That's my understanding, at least.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary of it. I think I think this still applies in our chemical practices. Like the classic example that's used certainly from a Chinese medicine perspective is the Jing is like the oil in the oil lamp, and it's when you think about essence to translate that, it's that oil that gives the potential that then can be ignited and turned into the flame, which is the Qi. So we're trying to gather more and more of that essential first step substance, in a sense,
right.
Like that, the Jing.
And it only gathers when it's not disturbed.
When it's calm.
Yeah.
Because it will, we touched on this with emotions before, but the Jing will also, in men and women, will be disrupted by emotions and mental activity. That's a good one to mess up and rattle your Jing.
Yeah.
So it's not just desires that could trample on that, it's also huge overactivity, stresses, whatever it might be, day-to-day life, that has a good way of just burning through and scattering that Jing.
A complex question. So people that are listening to this and don't know, right, might be wondering, but when you're talking about Jing, this essence, are we talking about what, like liquid that you have inside, like little building blocks you have inside, like what is it like it has to be still, it doesn't have to move? What are we actually talking about here? Like
might be beyond our pay grade.
Near the perineum. Aside from what?
Well, it's a really good question. Jing is denser than Qi, right? So it is it
governs the production of bodily functions and fluids.
Yeah.
It does a number of things.
I think we are told it's the most the denser of the immaterial substances in a way,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's still, we're not talking about something that
Totally
you
physical.
can physically find. Although, like some people would say, but isn't Jing like your sexual fluids? And it's not. It's contained in the sexual fluids because it's got a lot of. It's the potential for life as well. Like as you were saying, the oil. So like it's there, but it's not really a physical
Yang
thing.
spark.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a good thing to clarify, because certainly in that bastardization and the westernization of Chinese like alchemical practices, and certainly in Chinese medicine, they'll try and say like Jing, it could be the equivalent of DHEA, like a hormone that gets used to help as a precursor to other hormones, which is not true. Or that Jing might relate to, in men, the sperm parameters for fertility. It's like, no, it's not quite that physical.
Can't quite be pinned down like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, which is a thing that like it is true. I understand for the majority of concepts that are related to our practice, or like in the West, often they try to find, like in the scientific world or whatever, like they try to find an equivalent, like a way to frame it in our own Western terms, and it does a disservice to it. Like it's not necessary, and generally there are some things in common, but it's not exactly what is, like chi is not like your breath, or Jing is not your sperm, or whatever. It's never exactly like that, and it works also between different disciplines, right? Like the Dantian are not the chakras, and like there's similarities, but like things are best kept in their own separate thing. Right. So and you don't do this mistake.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
All right.
Super Jim.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
No.
Now, you were consolidating where we got to in the discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Clarified
Jing and the
Jing.
Jing.
Yeah.
Jing and the Jing. I
Yeah,
think we covered it though.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
did a beautiful thing there of summing it all up, and you made like the beautiful example of the waves and the still water and all of that. Like, I appreciated that. Like, so I'm thinking.
So let's move on to like, how do you work with desires?
Yeah. Yes. Like how? Like sorry. Like can I take back to my question, which was like, so desires are not inherently a bad thing. We're not talking of morale here. Like they're not like ethically wrong or something like that. Like they're just not like falling prey to one's desire is not efficient for our practice. Like it makes it more difficult to obtain the results we want. So
It's pragmatic.
it's pragmatically, like we have to choose not to succumb to some desires, our desires, in order to obtain to fulfill a greater goal, right? That's the thing, which for me is really crucial, because like it really it's the argument that I try to pass with my friends that go crazy when I tell them like, no, sorry, I don't eat ice cream, and they go, what? Say what? Like, no, sorry, I cannot eat an ice cream. Why can you not eat an ice cream? Yeah, it messes with my dantian. And I say, what? Like, they don't accept it, and then they like. I'm specifically thinking of my friend Camilla.
Shout out.
Who's like I want to name her. Like she says like, "Oh, your guru told you not to drink, not to have ice cream. Hey, everyone, Gelato was good. I told him not to drink. He's not eating ice cream." Like that, right? Like
So you're harboring the desire for revenge. I see.
Yes. So, like, I tell you, like I'm not building a single drop of chi in the next few years because I'm full of hate, full of resentment, right? So, and instead, I would like to say, look, like I'm happy to give up ice cream, because when I do, like it's almost like putting a little coin in a machine that then gives me chi, almost like I take away the ice cream, I get more chi.
Hey.
And Camilla would go, good for you, enjoy your chi. But actually I do enjoy having a little more pinch of chi every time I renounce to an ice cream, right? Like, so this idea for me has been crucial, because it sets me in a different frame of mind whenever I have to make a choice about actually working on something as opposed to sitting on my ass. Like I think I work for something. I'm actually I'm just paying the ticket to get something good in return. And it's
I think that's the most important point, because it's not about avoidance and gritting against it.
White knuckling.
Yeah, and being like, I really want, well, let's use the ice cream example. I really want ice cream, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. It's like, then my understanding is the desire is still there. You know,
you haven't overcome it.
Yeah, you're resisting it. So you're building willpower. That's something. And discipline, but it's like you need to also get to the point where that is quietened enough that my understanding again, you know, is that then it would be neutral enough that you're not craving it because it's just not a thing, it's not a factor for you. And I think what you touched on there is that's the best intrinsic way to do it, is because you know that by not doing one activity is allowing you to reap rewards from your training, which is very different to, I really want to eat ice cream, but I won't, because I believe, I guess it's good for me. Yeah, that's not going to, that's a very different psychological aspect.
God says so.
Yeah.
Right. Like, or whoever, like, there's a rule of it. And and also, of course, it makes it, the subtle difference is that, like, there are specific cases, like, for example, ice cream is specifically not very good because it kind of freezes the dantian, which is an interesting concept. But, like, so ice cream is specifically not good. But in general, there are things that might be inherently neutral to the practice in themselves, like, right? Like, it's not a big deal if it doesn't make a difference. I don't know, if you read a novel. But, like, if you're obsessed with reading novels and you just spend a lot of time doing that, that is the problem. It's the obsession. You want to get rid of that thing that makes it so that when you sit to meditate, you sit to stay quiet and still, like, your mind goes back to those novels, thinks about the novels, wants more novels. So you want to get rid of that obsession. So it's more your addiction to a thing that is a problem. Then once you're rid of the addiction, you can eat the novel. Sorry, I'm still thinking of ice cream. You can
Delicious. I love novels.
You can eat those chocolate novels. No, you can read the novels or do whatever you want, basically, unless it's particularly unhealthy in some other way.
Because it's that mental activity that's drawing you in, that's taking away your, I guess, your neutrality and taking your focus of attention, right? Yeah. And so, like, your novel example, I think is good. It's like, we all have those individual things, and that when you're trying to sit, it's like, that's what the mind seems to want to plate up to distract you, to stop you from stilling that lake, to consolidate that gene.
Right.
A lot of people, when they think about discipline, think about behavior. But this kind of deeper aspect of discipline of, like, well, what's purpose is it serving? How is it actually shifting who you are, changing your mind? I think it's really much more interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's also, before we even get into that, I think it's important to define, like, discipline. Like, when you start talking about discipline, people also think about, like, I need to be motivated to be disciplined. There's also willpower. And I think it's worth, like, teasing out each of those, because motivation's kind of bullshit. Like, motivation is inspiration that is, like, almost the action that you do that might get you off the couch to do something. But people, I think, look for motivation like, people are like, I just need more motivation to train, or I need more motivation to avoid the ice cream, or whatever it might be. Where motivation comes and goes, and you shouldn't be at the whim of your motivation, because it's not always going to be there. And discipline is different. Like, discipline is the, like, committed action over time that builds towards a long-term goal. And the way that I see it is that willpower sort of sits in the middle there. Is that willpower is the short-term execution of something that stops you following an impulse or avoiding something. So, like the ice cream example, or whatever, of eating the cake or whatever, or I'm not going to think about burgers right now, or, like, it's willpower that's executed in that point of time, that over periods of time, the willpower allows you to lend towards discipline.
Right.
And
the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's a huge topic, because, like, willpower, some people think that willpower is just, I just kind of lack willpower, and I'm not real good at it. And it's like, willpower literally is a muscle. It's a component of the brain that executes willpower, which I think is really cool, because it then says that, just like with anything else, if you don't build that component of yourself, like, if you didn't lift particular weights to build your bicep muscles, then of course your bicep muscles are not going to be that strong compared to someone who does do bicep curls every day. Someone who executes willpower on a daily basis is going to have a more active brain region which executes willpower. And so the person who often, like, frequently gives into their desires, like, stuff it, I'll eat the ice cream, I'll have the burger, and I'll do this and I'll do that, is not activating that brain region, and it shrinks, and then they struggle to execute willpower. If you get them, like studies talk about this, if you get that person to then resist things that is not pleasant for them, so like if you get dieters and they stick to a diet, it builds this brain region, and that brain region is the AMCC, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and it's found in the middle of the brain, and that is super cool because that's the brain region that you activate that builds willpower. And then as you, like, I don't know if you guys find this, like, when you become disciplined in one area of your life, it bleeds over to other areas of your life, right? Yeah. Like if you're following a diet or an exercise program and you're doing that, you're less likely to then sloth off and not wash the dishes or not clean the house, or, you know, it's like, because you're building that brain region that then is able to, like, intervene on impulses and actually execute willpower more consistently. And so what's also fascinating about that is, the last thing I'll say is that is also then tied in with people's, like, they see in elderly people, like, it keeps them from aging terribly, in the sense that when we do things as we age, if people execute that area of the brain and stimulate it more often, it's larger, and these people are called super agers, and they maintain healthy cognitive function through their, like, 70s and 80s, right? But they also, what's fascinating, they associate this potentially with increasing someone's will to live. So it's like pretty kind of big stuff. Big deal. You know, it's like important to do. And I sometimes wonder if that's where, like, exercise and cognitive, like constantly doing difficult intellectual cognitive tasks as we age, they show how that prevents aging. Is it because it's actually stimulating the AMCC? But the catch is, you need to do shit that you don't want to do. So if you enjoy, for instance, doing hard physical labor, that doesn't activate the brain in the same way that it does if the person who doesn't enjoy going for that, like, workout or that run. So it's like, it's you pushing beyond your level of comfort in some way. And I think that when you start to look at, like, it doesn't all obviously just come down to the neurobiology of this, but I think that if you kind of look at that and you go, okay, I need to do things that I don't want to do, and I do them in, like, small micro ways. So, like, start with little things, like avoid the dessert, or do the dishes, or make your bed, or do that plank or that workout that you kind of don't really want to do. You're stimulating your brain region. Then, to me, you're building willpower that allows you to transfer that over to when you're doing, like, seated meditation, that you're more likely to be able to execute willpower to resist impulses of the mind starting to kick in. And then over time, that builds discipline, and then that discipline then helps you kind of settle things down so that you're not falling whim to and prey to whatever those impulses and those desires are.
So how would you define discipline? Is it like a pattern of behavior that's healthy and supportive over time? Yeah,
that's basically, I think that's how they define it, is like it's sustained, long-term, consistent is the word that often comes up. Like execution that is used to achieve a goal. Yeah.
So to frame it easily, like, you're saying that by renouncing some ice creams, as delicious as they might be, I'm going to outlive Camilla, and she's going to desire to die before I actually get.
It's 100% what I'm saying. That's what science
not understand
seems
shit. Okay, Camilla, you heard that, my friend?
That could help you get over your hatred and envy.
All jokes aside, I actually have seen you, Jimo, grow a decent amount of discipline.
Well, I think for the decent, that's patronizing, but that's accurate. I have to say that, like, I to bring it to my personal story, as I like to, I totally lack discipline, like, and I lacked it completely, 100% in my youth. I was like, both my parents are fantastic people, but like, yeah, I was not disciplined and like not in the wrong way when it happened. So, the only child of an only child, I consider myself to be mostly versed in entitlement and being spoiled. Right? Like, so,
this makes sense.
and yeah, it makes sense. You get it, right? Like you get it. And
No, I'm kidding.
no, but actually yes, and it's difficult. It's been very, very difficult because I fell in that paradox that I wanted to mention before, but I didn't interrupt you, which was when you were talking about how you develop willpower, right? Like just like any other muscle, right? Like you need to train it, right? Like you need to train your whatever, like biceps, you go to the gym and you train it. But what do you use to train your biceps? The willpower to go to the gym and train your biceps, right? Like, so to me, I was always in that thing, like, but how do I train with willpower without having the willpower to train the willpower?
So, yeah.
And I was in this fucking paradox.
you're in a rabbit hole.
Like, it was very difficult.
But yeah, you've got to resist something.
Yeah, that's the fun. Like, and I've been craving discipline in my adult age because I've seen how the lack of discipline messed my life up in so many ways. And now that I start to see things a little more clearly, I also realize how from the mental, from the mind, it went into the body, and my body is shaped from no discipline, and the same, like the fact that I lack discipline in my body shaped my mind. So these two aspects of missing discipline mess the old systems up, and and by forcing myself to actually accept discipline, and I've been, how to say, parasiting discipline as much as I could, like
That's
like
a verb.
Yeah, I've been like, for example, like I've been on Vipassana retreats, right? Like where you spend 10 days in which you just meditate all day and just eat only at this time of the day, and you don't speak, and you cannot make a single choice except whether in that 1 hour you're going to go and take a shit or not. Like in the 1 hour you have time, right? Like that's the only choice you take. For the rest, like everything is done for you and stuff. Like you have, every choice is taken. And I've been how to say, like sunbathing in that discipline, in that level of, okay, I have no power, I have nothing, I just have to do this, and I cannot choose not to do it. Like I have to, like, and if I choose not to do it, the only way I can do that is abandoning this thing, and I'll be a loser forever. I'm sorry for the people that abandoned, but like yeah, and that helped me. Like I was really basking in that discipline thing. Like it helped, like to have that support. And even now, whenever we are forced in our classes and stuff to do something that I don't want to do, and I know that as soon as I stop, I get them on my ass going like, rest is bad for your soul, don't rest, Girolamo, blah 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 blah. I'm happy. I take advantage of that. It really, it's kind of the help of discipline. It's not full discipline, like
forced discipline.
Forced discipline. As Dan knows, I work a lot on peer pressure. Like if I see other people doing stuff, I say, fuck, like they're doing it, I have to do it as well. And I start doing it. If they're not there doing it, probably I'll just be there with one finger in my nose doing nothing, right? But like it's kind of mid stages to discipline. And when I then can do full discipline and I'm on my own, for example, during breaks or early in the morning when I'm on my own, and I force myself to do the job on my own, I feel, fuck yeah, this is actual proper Girolamo giving discipline to Girolamo, and it's a good achievement, and I feel a little happy for myself. And then I realize I'm still not building chi, and fuck all.
But I get to wake up to the sound of you jumping rope at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
now.
me cursing because I hate myself.
Yeah. It's a great way to wake up.
Well, it's building your willpower.
Yeah.
But I think that you're touching on a couple of really cool things there, because there are certainly ways that we can help it. Like you're talking about, if other people are doing it, like studies will show that if you're accountable to someone else, then you're more likely to go through with it, which is why exercise boot camps and things like that work. Like if someone is going to meet you at the gym or whatever else, like if it's just you, it's easy to roll over, turn the alarm clock off and go back to sleep.
Dan's a big fan of accountability in like in groups like you last year. You really liked when the group of us was very tight, and you really like if we all got each other's back.
The group vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the group dynamic is helpful. Yeah. So I think that, they're things that people can use to start. Like the easy example is always like if someone's trying to diet, you don't get them to have the food in the house. Like if the resistance is too great, it's hard to do it.
Right.
If it's easier to, like if I'm trying to avoid sugar and I've got chocolate in the house, it's too easy to do it. Where if I had to go out and go to the shop to buy chocolate, then the resistance starts to come into the equation, and then it starts to help support the willpower, I suppose, and the discipline of it.
I'm really thirsty. You guys want anything from the kitchen, like a beer or something like that?
Just a Ben and
Yes, I
Jerry's.
would like one, but no, I won't have one, thank you.
No, anyone water or something?
I'm good. We brought our bottles. We're prepared.
Sorry, I was sleeping.
So let's keep going because there's something interesting here. The difference between white knuckling and releasing is something to me that I feel like brings this whole area of what we're talking about into the practice.
Yeah.
Right? Because it can be a subtle difference to try to explain. What is releasing against the desire, and how does that change you?
Well, so this is something that I guess was just a Tai Chi methodology, I suppose, or a practice in terms of in Tai Chi.
Which we haven't really explained yet on the podcast, but that's
so
part of what we're doing.
Let's kind of like give a real quick explanation of that in the sense.
Hey guys, I'm back.
Welcome back. In Tai Chi, where you're trying to help to provide some level of release within the body. So for the people listening, the simple way I guess we might explain that is like the release of the muscle tension in the body. And so to start with, I'm sure we've all been in the situation where you're in a stance and your legs are burning like hell and it's super tight and uncomfortable, and you find that point of tension and you get your mind into there and you release your mind. So it's like kind of just just letting it chill out, and it applies that quality to that part of the body. And
So it's a combination of the mind absorbing into the body, the area of tension, and relaxing
and releasing of that interface,
and having an impact.
Yeah. And so I just noticed years ago that you can do the same thing, it seems, with emotions. And you feel where that tension might be originating from or what it's creating within your body, and apply attentiveness to it or attention and just apply some level of release, like kind of let go. And so when it comes to desires, there's the easy way of, okay, I recognize there's a desire that I want to eat this food, or I want to do this thing, or I have this impulse. And you can white knuckle it, as you say, and grit against it and resist it. But
we're not talking about behavior, we're talking about how you relate inside.
Yes.
In your own mind.
Yes, yeah. And you can kind of like try to separate yourself from it and kind of compartmentalize it. But I mean, everything that you kind of understand is like the more that you resist something and push it away, the more you're almost giving energy to that process at the same time. It will eventually come back because you're not kind of moving past it. You're actually just creating more tension around it. And at some point it's likely to win. Where if you observe it and notice that it's there and let it go, like almost let it pass through you, might be other ways you could describe that. Or you just release against that tension. Like I feel my strong desire that I really want to do that thing. And then you can observe it and then just let go and just release. Now, I think that, I don't know, it depends on what you guys think. I think learning that quality from Tai Chi makes that easier.
Yeah, because you're grounding it in the body.
Yeah, and you learn the feedback of, am I releasing or not?
Right, the body's a great feedback tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because saying releasing is a thing, but like
skill.
actually doing it, like what do you mean? Like especially when it comes to insubstantial things, right? Like say if someone who's addicted to smoking, and you tell them, yeah, every time you feel the desire to smoke a cigarette, just observe it
and
and
release
release,
against
and they're
it.
like, what do you mean?
yeah. It sounds
Line of coke? You know?
Or it's like, and also I think, if possible, finding where it's coming from may be useful for some people. Like
just tracking the origin.
Yeah, because, and I mean, this is certainly in your domain, because you're like, hang on, do I want to do that thing because it makes me feel better, because I'm not feeling great, because I'm doubting my abilities because of this, or because someone said something shitty to me.
So can we use an actual Laurence example? You got anything on?
Yeah, let me try and think for a second. If I was thinking about, I'm trying to think something recent that's more fresh.
Should I call Buzz?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go with an easy. It's like, right, like it's it's a beautiful Friday afternoon, and we sat down for burgers, and it was like, man, I could kill for a beer. Like, of course, it's a sunny Friday afternoon.
You always can kill.
Yeah.
Like it's not the first time we use it. Okay.
You know, it's like,
Wonder
we
if the
love
other
a
ones will
refreshing, cold, icy beer. And you go, okay, well, yeah, let's tap into where, like, what is that creating within me? Where's that coming from? And like, I personally I don't kind of try to use words or label it or understand it or something. It's just more like identifying, like,
Get curious.
Curious about it, detecting what that kind of feels like, almost finding the origin of where that feels like it's coming from in the body.
Is it like a feeling you're trying to
Yeah,
achieve?
like a feeling, like a sensation,
Sensation.
a somatic sensation that I can feel coming in, because it tends to be there. Sometimes it'll be in the brain as well. And then acknowledging that, like paying attention to it, and then going, okay, cool, let's release it. Which is, to me, in some ways is more satisfying, because otherwise it's like starting to itch, like scratch an itch.
Right.
And you start, and then you're like, oh, now I just need more, because I've woken that sensation up. So,
You mean if you drink the beer?
yeah, if you have wine,
right.
like, I'm not a raging alcoholic, let's be clear, but it's like with any of those things, you know that if you do that, you're actually just scratching that itch, and it's not going to go away.
Right.
You're not going to be like,
Right.
that's great. It's like, if I was to go, okay, I'll have a beer, you'd be like, yeah, now I feel like another one. You know, and it's like the snowball starts.
When you identify sort of the root, maybe say, oh, I'm seeking a sensation. In that example, when you release against that desire, do you find that sensation is then more available?
And I find it dissipates.
Dissipates. Okay.
Yeah.
But the sensation that you're wanting, like not the desire, but like say the desire is to feel relaxed. And if you release against the belief that I need the beer to feel relaxed.
I see where you're going. Yeah, I think
sense?
if that was the case, I mean, like, my brain is fairly simple when it comes to these things. It's like, it's just
Beer.
tasty and enjoyable.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not chasing. Sometimes totally after like a stressful day, you're at work or whatever else, and you come home and you want to drink, and you want to switch off, and you kind of want that like brain GABA actions, that calming. You're like, Then you totally, I'm chasing a sensation there. And if you can release against it, you can kind of get that, or like at least get the balanced result of that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just want it because you want the chocolate cake, and it's just tasty. It's just,
Very
you know,
simple.
it's just a hedonistic pleasure.
First of all, I don't like that you accused me, like, of having had a chocolate cake at lunch today, which I have, and I defend that. Like,
I didn't-
yeah,
See-
you
see
just
how your projections-
you just did that. You just did that. I know you. You did that.
We see how envious this guy, how much hatred he has.
It's amazing. He's made it this far.
Second, like, can I ask you to set, and for this, it's great to have a psychotherapist here. Also, to set where is the distinction, the wall between how you go and chase for the root of a desire of something during your day when you're trying to sort out your mind, and how you do that while you're actually practicing. Because in practice, you're not meant to go very far with that, right? Like, you're just releasing, but like, you don't go and do an inquiry because you get trapped in the mind, right? Like, so how is that working? How would you define this distinction?
I think personally, I don't do it that deep. I don't dig that deep even during the day. It's more just, hang on, let's just focus in on what that is. Oh, okay, that's cool. Let's release it. Because trying to understand it is just going to open up a can of worms.
Yeah, you never go back to the origin of the trauma that makes you want beer every 5 minutes.
Yeah, and then I end up crying in the corner, and I can talk with people
So you're in
around
the
you.
restaurant.
Yeah. It's more, seems like you more just want to focus in, so you kind of put your attention on it enough to like capture it well enough so that you can release it fully or allow it to pass through you fully, instead of just like a component of it, perhaps.
So you have to kind of find its boundaries, see where it has an influence on your body, on your mind, like kind of like shape it, and then at that stage it's clear enough to release or something like that. You see where it has implications and things, so that you can fully release it.
Yeah, I guess I'd
Does
just
that
be
make
like
sense?
acknowledge it, in a sense. Like, I wouldn't even shape it. It'd just be like,
Right.
tap into what is that? Okay, release. Because you kind of need something to, you almost need to go into it, it seems, to allow it to to then pass through. Just the same as you might in Tai Chi, is you need to like go into that muscle to get a good sensation of where it's tight to try to release it.
Yeah,
I think
that's a fine art, right?
Yeah.
Because there's almost like a boundary, a layer of resistance around that uncomfortableness. And it can be physical or it can be emotional. To like actually get your mind into the heart of that point of tension. It's actually quite difficult to do.
You cannot put your mind where it's very tight and knotted and stuff, right?
Yeah,
like
it's hard.
that you cannot like, and that's also I'm wondering, right? Like, so in for Tai Chi or for the most physical side, normally we, okay, on one hand we build Chi and blah blah blah, so we have more ability to put the mind wherever we want, right? So you can go a little deeper even in parts that are knotted, but also we do a lot of side practices to open and pull and stretch so that those parts are physically like brutally opened a little bit, right? Like so that it's easier to go inside with the mind. Is that a thing that you can also do, like for mind emotion things?
Can you do emotional stretching?
Yeah, can you do emotional stretching?
I don't know. That might be an interesting thing to develop.
Right. I think I see a business opportunity here.
Yeah.
Emotional stretching class.
But I think just like with the body, even if the furthest you can get is the periphery, then that's okay. Then that's as far as you can get, and then over time you can kind of get deeper and deeper.
Yeah, you erode. Right?
Yeah, I
Like,
guess
very
you refine that process, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's the art of song, which is art, like release, is kind of never ending.
Yes,
Refinement. It seems like.
Yeah.
It just goes deeper
song is a
and deeper.
Chinese word, right? Like
Yeah.
because you don't want to say that I release a song and stuff like it gets confusing, like with the English
Which
language.
song
So-
should I release now?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Like so, it's like the art of song. I don't know any idea of what tone or whatever how you pronounce it and stuff. Like it's this specific concept of releasing, which often is confused with relaxing, and it's
Different.
Again one of those words like Chi that like changes its meaning as you go on. Like releasing causes different results as your practice goes on. Like you release to let the gravity take the mass down and to separate the flesh from the body, and then at some stage you release three-dimensionally in all directions and everything expands, and then you release to go back and step back with your mind. So there's a million different meanings, but it's definitely a key concept, right?
And I think that applies. Maybe I don't know. Does that apply to the mind as well? It seems because you're saying it's an eternal process, and you can then like it might start when you start trying to sung some of that. It's at the point where the desire is there fully in the front of your brain, and you're salivating at the potential of obtaining that and acting on that impulse. And then it kind of can move to the point where you can start to feel that desire arising within you, but it hasn't taken a full-fledged form. And you can kind of start to address it at that point potentially as well, which is maybe just as you start to get more aware of recognizing the habits that they come up in, perhaps. I don't know.
Yes, and I think it's interesting. The more we talk about desires and how they work and all of that, the more I think that if you keep going to more and more, I wouldn't say refined, but let's say complex desires or more subtle desires, right? Like starting from the base fuck cake beer, and you go upwards. Like in the end, almost every thought is basically a desire in a way. It's your mind that wants to feed itself with something that will make it grow, right? Like,
Yeah,
so,
totally.
So
Your identity.
yeah, you want to build your identity with everything. So ultimately, like Damon says, like the mind loves drama, right? Like so everything that stirs the mind a little bit, that makes it active, the mind wants. And so when then it finds that one specific thought or kind of thoughts activates is activating, it replicates it, right? Like and it keeps trying to bring these thoughts, these kinds of thoughts, more and more to the surface, so that we get tangled in them, and then it can build itself again, be more and more present. So it creates these kind of micro addictions to certain kind of thoughts, right? And you get trapped in patterns of thoughts because like they are juicy for your mind, and it knows that it can trip you into them. And so and to all of these, like the only way I think to, maybe not the only way, but like one way to resist is always this one, like finding them, releasing them, like understanding them. And so like our path, our process of cultivation is also this, like finding every moment as much as possible, where are we trapped in a pattern of thoughts, in a pattern of desires, and trying to understand what they are, where they are, and trying to release them. And to me, it's a super interesting hunt. This this, even the most simple things, right? Like for example, like micro triggers, right? Like I found out my this is somehow a silly example, but like I don't know where it went. I found out my friend Alfonso changed his mind about butter. Right, before he used to like it very, very thinly spread on bread, right? And I remember when we were kids, like I know this guy for a really long time. He taught me how to spread it very thinly, like very nice. And then recently, I have heard him saying, I really like thick slices of butter, almost as if it was cheese, right? And at the moment, I didn't say anything. But then now, every single time I have to deal with butter, I put butter on my bread, as you know, I do it often in the morning. I think, I should tell Alfonso that I know this difference between what he was when he was a kid and now. And every single time, what the fuck am I talking about? Every single time I put butter on bread, I think that I should call him and let him know about this.
But you
thing.
never do.
I kind of never do, because I'm having breakfast easy in another part of the country, so it's not the right time. I say, like, I'll do it
Never the
another
right
moment.
time.
It's been like 3 months, every morning more or less. Like I think this thing, and I think my brain is going, good. That's gonna keep you busy for at least 5 seconds. I'm gonna nail that in. Like,
Every morning.
you know, like, and even now, the brain thought like, what can we bring out? Let's bring out Alfonso example and butter, right? Like,
It's now put out to the
so
world.
it's becoming a big thing, and then I think about it and I laugh about it and I realize that it's one of these patterns. Like, and I, you know, like this is a funny one, of course, who cares? But like, if you look into it yourself, you find a million of these patterns, and some of them are really, really ingrained to the point that it's difficult to notice them. But so as soon as you have like a specific physical sensation, it triggers a certain thought, which triggers a certain sensation, which triggers a thought, and you get into these chains that are endless and repetitive and monotonous. And
I think it's like neurological stacking. Isn't that what it's called? It's like where you
Of
get
course
these
it is.
habits, and it's like that equals this kind of thing. You know, it's like people that are trying to quit smoking, and then when they drink, it's like the association is then the smoking goes
exactly
with the
that.
drinks and stuff like that. But what you were touching on before, I think, is like the crux of it is that what makes it so interesting, and is the reason why I guess you avoid the ice cream and put up with Camilla's ridicule, because it's untangling.
so difficult.
It's untangling the fact that it's not just, I just need to avoid ice cream.
Right.
It's the fact that is the tip of the iceberg of a function of the mind.
Yeah.
And that you're trying to continue to like pull back those layers to be able to see more and more of how it's functioning, and how it throws that filtered lens of perceptions over how we function and what we do. And so to me, I think that's the reason why it's you avoid, you pursue the active avoidance of desire, you know, because it's not just about avoiding it, but you're like, I want to do this because it's not about the stiff rigidity like you were talking about earlier of like, oh, I just need to do it because it's a sin and I shouldn't be like that or whatever else. It's like you avoid it and you tackle that desire because it's a manifestation of the way the mind is working.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and that's almost seems endless from what I can see. And the other thing, while I'm just rambling, is that I also think it's interesting because of addressing the identity of self that may be wrapped up in some of those desires.
Oh yeah, big time.
And that's cool because that makes you reevaluate who you are, or makes you very uncomfortable with your relationship with avoiding that desire or whatever else. And and the last thing I'll say is, just circling back quickly to the release against it, if people are struggling to kind of get that concept, I would say the easy way to think about it would also be that it's difference when we're resisting something, like when we're like, I really want that, but no, I can't, but I really want it, but no, I can't. And that like friction and resistance that it builds inside of us. This song is like the opposite of that.
The
like
opposite energy.
Complete opposite. It's like, it's just allowing it to go through you. You're like, you know, maybe it's a silly example, like if people are giving you shit about, you know, not eating ice cream, or, you know, your friends are giving you shit about whatever else when you were growing up, people know, and this is where Basil comes in, like people know that I get a reaction from that. Oh, I'm going to poke, you know, like you're going to get your back up because of that. Then we're going to poke, and the mind is no different. And it's like, oh, you're creating a whole bunch of mental tension because I keep raising this issue and this desire, for instance. We're going to keep raising it because it keeps inadvertently feeding the mind through that activity.
Yeah.
You guys have mentioned Baza a couple times. I feel like we owe it.
I don't know.
We owe it to the audience.
I know. Like I also
The in
like,
jokes. I don't know, man.
Baza is the mind.
Baza, yeah, it's your mind specifically.
Baza is my mind. Baza is my...
Degenerate mind? What would we
Yeah,
call it?
but at some point, my drunken alter ego was called Baza. And
one of mine.
one of them.
One of the men.
And when I guess I was coming to terms with the idea about how the mind works and like what we were talking about in terms of that it just likes to get attention. It will plate up things to get attention.
Yeah.
Like it's not plating up things that are completely neutral and uninteresting that get no attention from you. It will bring up the thoughts, the feelings of whatever that will get a reaction, whether positive or negative. And so I started to realize, well, okay, well, basically the mind should be ignored. And an easy way for me to think about that was to think it's almost like your drunken, idiotic, or just stupid friend that has shit ideas all the time. You know, hey, we should totally do this. And you're like, that's a dumb idea. Now, you don't listen to that person for life advice, do you? You're like, you're a moron. Why do I care about your opinion? Like, you're great fun and I like you, but I'm not going to listen to you when it comes to like relationship or career advice or life advice or whatever it might be. So why do we do the same thing with the mind? You know, the mind is constantly just plating up shit to just get a reaction. But yet we pay so much attention to it, where when I thought of it like Baza, like, okay, let's compartmentalize it to a degree and think about it like that idiotic friend. When that idiotic friend says, let's do stupid things, I'm like, yeah, I'm not even replying to your text. Like, it's 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. No, I'm not coming out. You know, it's like, you just ignore it. But when the mind does it, for some reason, we give it a lot more credence. We pay it attention. So I started thinking about my mind like Baza and just giving it the same level of attention and the same level of acknowledgement that you would to that idiotic friend. Hence Baza.
Yeah.
Somehow this is very, very sweet thing to hear.
Yeah, when you said we shared this the other week, we both went, that's really sweet.
So to think of you like this, shut up, Baza. I don't need to drink again.
No, I'm not doing that, Baza.
I'm not doing that
again.
I'm not doing that, Baza. Leave me alone.
Yeah, it does it opens the possibility for multiple personalities. I'll acknowledge that.
Oh, yeah. we all have many parts, you know. To me, I would like the mind. To me, feels very broad, but I guess I would categorize that as like discursive mind, or a part of my mind that's trying to pull me away from presence, pull me away from awareness.
Yeah,
right.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's one argument I think regarding this need to identify things, like to put your finger on them, like to acknowledge them and stuff, because that's when you can actually separate from them and realize, okay, this is not actually me. This is something acquired. This is like a reaction. This is something else that it's built on top of me, and that I can choose to discard if I want. And of course, then I guess like the whole thing goes on, like as in, okay, so what is me, right? Like who am I, and like is it me, the person that is looking at that thing? And then you realize little by little, no, maybe it's not even that. Like, and you can go backwards and peeling off this onion of the acquired self, till finally you find your true self.
Baza.
Maybe it's Baza. Damn it.
That'd be amazing. Oh my God.
Here we are again.
Baza.
But I think that's when it comes to behavior change, I think that's a really fascinating concept, I think, because we act in accordance with our beliefs of who we are.
Yeah.
And so this is another thing I think we can use to help with behavior change, is that you go, that's actually not me. That's not what I do. Like the easy example they always use is like if someone offers you a cigarette and you don't smoke, you just go like, no thanks. Where when you're like a reform smoker and you've quit, someone like, do you want a cigarette? They're like, oh, I don't smoke anymore. And it's like the identity in that phrase is that I am a smoker, but I'm not smoking now.
You're still claiming.
Exactly, yeah. And so we make those. I think that kind of gets to a bit of the core of like, am I like is who? Not the deep question of who am I, but at least the degree of am I? I'm not the person that does that anymore.
Yeah, so like, we not only sung the desire, but we sung the identity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Around the desire.
Yeah.
Which ultimately brings to what I really like the most. I think I was talking about it already, like last episode or something, which might be the future episode because we don't know when we're going to publish and in what order anything, right? Like, so no, whatever. Like this idea that you're not the same person that decides to do a new thing. Like you're transforming yourself into the person that does that thing, which for me is a crucial mind trick for getting things done. Like I transform myself into the person that can skip rope at 6 a.m. right? Like,
yeah.
Then some people may say why.
You become the person that skips rope at 6 a.m. by following those actions, like as well. Is that beliefs are part of this, but also just fucking doing it makes you that person, which
yes,
I think
but
is
maybe not only.
No.
Like a person that wants to quit smoking generally doesn't say, okay, I want to quit smoke, and then like can just quit smoking normally, right? Like there is like they try for a million times and they don't succeed, and then all of a sudden, without understanding how, they quit very easily somehow because like they have released something else, like they've transformed themselves. Like for example, they have filled the gap that they were filling with cigarettes at that stage of something. Sorry, like I'm using really banal, like horrible, low-level psychology ideas. Like don't feel insulted, but like something like that, right? Like at some stage, something else kicks in your life that makes you change and do the thing that was very difficult for you before. And of course, like you combine it with the will of doing that. Right? Like it goes in both directions. Like it's not just like I just have to wait and I'll quit smoking. No, like you'll die of cancer first. But I'm sorry, not necessarily. But it's a combination of things. In general, like I think when you then have quit, like you realize that you're not the same person as before. You're a different person, and then how you've achieved it is different ways, including forcing yourself to do that thing. But you're definitely a different person. You're not the same person. We're never the same person as 1 minute ago, as we all know. But at the same time, like more specifically related to that topic, you're not the same person. You're not the person that smokes. You're not just the same person before that was smoking that now is not smoking.
So
might be splitting.
Here's a question for you then. Given that the practices that we're doing support personal change and transformation, is it possible that desires are almost also acting in a way of the brain to keep you anchored to the person that you were? Because as you change, your relationship with the ice cream or with the whatever, the beer or the whatever it might be, potentially changes, but the desire is going to keep you anchored in the person that was that person that had that relationship with that thing.
Right. Absolutely. I would say 100%. Yeah. I actually really enjoy, one of the things I enjoy most about my work as a therapist and also being here is watching people change. Actually, like their behavior changes, their desires change, they like let go of parts of themselves that I thought, were just them, right? Like from the outside, it just appears to be them. This person is, and suddenly they're very different. I find that very satisfying for some reason.
Because I think like it's not so common to be surrounded by a lot of people that are working on their own malleability, on their potential for change. And instead, this is really one key element. And again, it goes back to the Tai Chi and all the other things we do. You actually turn into a person whose mode is that of changing. As you say, like the desires, like all these things that keep you anchored, but little by little you turn into a person that recognizes more easily that pattern. Okay, this is a typical pattern of my desires. I found out that it was not just ice cream, cake, chocolate, Coke, beer, sex, comic books, and 500 million things. There is also iced tea. I never thought about this, but now I see that, and it's working exactly the same way as the others. Like, so I'm gonna tackle it the same way, and we're gonna go through it like a little quicker, and then from that to the smaller things, like whatever tiny little thing that you want to change about yourself, you realize that it's difficult to change much more because of your mind pattern than because of anything else. Like you, and I think that becomes great because at some stage when you're a bit advanced at this skill of change, you can really learn things really fast because of this as well. Not because you become like much more intelligent, maybe that, I don't know, but like also because like you're very quick in getting rid of the tensions that don't allow you to learn that specific thing, right? Like you realize, okay, I want to learn how to an example of something that you may learn.
Speak Bahasa, speak Indonesian or something.
Speak Bahasa, like you do.
Bahasa.
Speaking Bahasa Indonesia, yeah, you realize like I started studying Indonesian language, and I'm finding it a little easier than other times because I'm more reluctant. I know exactly when I need to study and in what way I need to study, because I know that most of the time when I struggled with studying things was also because I was self-sabotaging myself because I didn't want to do certain things, and so I put obstacles in front of me, and now I recognize them more clearly because you spend so much time studying your own mind and your own actions and your own things here that you actually begin really drawing a map of them like quite easily. You become a little bit of an expert of how you fuck up things.
It's kind of like greasing the wheels of change. It just becomes...
like, how can you come with these metaphors? Like you're quiet for 10 minutes and then you're like greasing the wheels of change. Like it's all song title.
I'm ready to release song.
So, let me rephrase it. It's just the water is still, but then the ripples of your thoughts. Jesus,
I'm swooning.
Yeah, man.
So we're low on time.
No, we're not. Like,
I
thought this thing, like as long as it's interesting, like we keep going forever.
Who's the one who says it's interesting?
Exactly. I mean, it's like okay, so like okay, if yours was we're low on time, is it like okay, we're running out of juice? That's different.
I think maybe just one thing that's lingering in the back of my mind is that
Oh, hi Newman. Landlord. Okay.
Oh,
What is bro? No worries.
something. Oh, I think it's his,
it's
his sink is leaking.
All right.
That's Nyoman, it's our landlord.
Yep.
Hi, Nyoman.
I could have shown some of my Indonesian, but I felt like a little shy.
Oh.
Go on. You were saying, right?
this is kind of going back to the beginning, so I'm somewhat reluctant, but I think that one of the critical points is also understanding why you want to, like you touched on this at the beginning really well, Chore, is that why you want to do something, like why you want to execute discipline and willpower. And I think that is the predetermined factor of success or not, to be honest, because if you're doing it because you think you should, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You need to like really want to do it for a meaningful reason to you. Like your example of avoiding the ice cream, because essentially it's going to undo, if you do have the ice cream, it's going to undo the hard work that you're doing in your training. So it's just giving you more return on your investment.
But what was it that you said before, and I was a little confused, like then motivation is not good. What do you mean by motivation then? Like when you were saying like you don't want to...
I think you don't want to rely on motivation, because motivation is just inspiration, and it's very fleeting.
Motivation is not like the same thing as like having a reason why you want.
Well, yeah, okay, it's a good thing. You technically, they would say you need to be intrinsically motivated by an internal desire for something that's meaningful to you, as opposed to an extrinsic motivation, like I should do this because I understand, or because I'm afraid of the consequences, or because someone else told me I should, I'm doing it for that reason. So it's kind of, it's a good point, because it's splitting of the hair of saying, in that sense, you need to have a motivation for something.
Okay, sure. Working?
No, in the office.
We turned it off for this.
Just 1 hour. Yeah.
Thanks, Rad. Thank you, Rad.
Where people think like, like I want to be motivated to get up and skip rope. It's like, well, there's going to be mornings that you're not going to be fucking motivated to do it. So how about you just go ahead with the action anyway. So it's like, I think that people wait for the motivation to cause the action every time, and they're like, oh, I'm just not feeling motivated to train today, I'm just not feeling motivated to work or study or whatever it might be, where you need to use the motivation for the initial perhaps inspiration, the honing in of what your goal is, and then from there on you've set your goal. From there on you use willpower to take the steps towards achieving that, and over time that creates discipline.
I think this makes a lot of sense also in the way that, especially when it comes to practice, you need to have an initial motivation, an initial push, and then you have to let go of that while you're actually doing the thing. While you're doing the thing, you have to be just pure attention and not have intention, because if you think too much about the goal while you're practicing, you're thinking, so you're fucking it up. You're caught into this intention, it's gonna make it worse. Instead, if you're just pure attention, you're just purely dedicated to what you do, it will work better. Which is the same for any other activity I'm finding, even including renouncing ice cream. Once you decided I'm gonna renounce ice cream, then you just don't want to make a drama about it. You don't want to make theater about it. Right? When you're not eating ice cream, you're not just gonna go, oh my god, I'm renouncing this, but boy, am I going to reap some rewards for this. No, just forget about it. It's not a matter. You're just not eating the ice cream, or you're just skipping the rope and not thinking about it. And in this, I think Ronnie, another of our teachers, and Demo's wife, is great, because she says that she said one thing I remember a few times actually. She says, when you really don't want to do something, especially for example you've been sick, so it's difficult to go back into your practice routine, right? You don't want to do the exercises. Just treat yourself. Just start doing it. Just go do it. Just 10
minutes.
Exactly. Get yourself down to it, and then stop thinking about it. And just do it, because you're doing. That's what you're trained to do. You do it.
I really feel that.
It's super helpful, because I tend to fuck myself up and sabotage myself by too much thinking. Okay, I need to do this. Will I do it now, or do I need to take 5 minutes before to shave? And then, maybe I should read a manual about it again, because I'm not sure how to do that. And then I just stay in bed instead. You just stand up and do the thing.
Yeah,
that's a big trick. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because it's I had always had that explained to me, similar to your metaphor before, in the sense it sounds like a greasing the wheel. It's just do the small things. So start with 5 minutes a day, if that's what is going to be realistic and achievable for you, and then slowly build it up. But you're basically building the process, and then now you're in the habit of training daily or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, and then start adding to it.
There is that Japanese modality of that. Of course, it's just a word, but then they built up a marketing thing around it, and made it into a method with books and things. I think it's called Kaizen or something like that, which is just if you want to learn if you want to stimulate yourself to do something, just do blocks of 5 minutes and all of that, blah 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 blah.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, your example of the going into the practice and you don't think about what you're trying to achieve and keeping just an attentive mind, I think is also a macro example of that is, the ice cream of not avoiding it and going, I'm getting the real satisfaction of not avoiding it. You should just be cool about it. It's no big thing. Because the problem with the motivation aspect is motivation is also reliant upon dopamine signaling, and you'll go through spikes and troughs of that. And if you go, I'm really motivated to achieve this goal, and that's the whole carrot that you're dangling, when you achieve that goal, you'll then go into a slump of dopamine. And then your ability to get off your ass and do something is going to be harder, because you do not have the psychological impulses to be able to encourage you to do that. And so you go into these peaks and troughs of it.
And then it's ice cream fest.
Exactly. And then you're because that will get you out of it, but then what probably is going to also get you out of it is going to be more ice cream rather than just the usual amount, right? Because that's going to peak your dopamine more and more, because dopamine you need more and more to continue to stimulate it. This is also the same thing then when people then fall into that trough. I'm no expert at this. I just spend time reading these papers and stuff. It's and you observe yourself. It's then people go, and they're sitting on social media, because what does social media give you? Well, you're scrolling, you're just getting constant dopamine hits, right? And then that's also why I think that the use of something like that, especially in the mornings, is super dangerous, because it like primes the brain for like, it gets a peak and then it like puts it into a trough and it's not able to like cognitively function and execute as well as it should be, because it's already been trained on a reward system. So
you see, especially in the morning.
Especially in the morning, it seems to be more problematic. They
Fucks
find.
up the whole of the day.
If you get on social media first thing in the morning, it
erodes the will.
Yeah, it completely erodes the will, because you get a dopamine spike, and so it's kind of like having cake for breakfast. It's like the first thing that you've had is some big reward stimulus. From there, the body's like, okay, cool. Well, let's just go into easy pleasure mode. Right?
It's like, a good day.
Yeah.
Every day is a Sunday.
So I think that, and the way that you can get yourself out of those troughs is just by starting doing small things that you don't want to do. So like, maybe it's getting up and doing the dishes, or maybe it's doing a brief workout, or they use cold showers as an example, which I wouldn't really endorse, but like anything.
If you love it, it doesn't count.
Yeah, exactly. If anything to kind of get the body into a state of discomfort, basically, because it starts to build the will up again.
Someone, I remember saying like, all my life I made my bed every single day, and that sorted out my life. I said, wow.
Simple.
Simple.
I will say I found the ultimate hack to creating will and discipline.
What's that?
Please share.
And controlling my desires.
What's that?
Full-time training.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All my desires have just sort of gone away.
Yeah.
Just faded into oblivion because I'm so tired all the time.
just chronic fatigue.
Just crush yourself.
Essentially.
You're worried about this. I can tell this. Like, it's the second day. I think you're a little worried that the little beast inside you is that, but don't worry, it's gonna spring back. So, as soon as you take like a couple of weeks of rest, and then you're gonna be a ferret like before, like just
a ferret. You call me a ferret?
Yeah, you're gonna be like the old ferret that wants to fuck every other little ferret in the jungle.
Ferrets live in the jungle.
Yes, because we sorry, I'm not a scientist like this guy. We've always DHA, HDD, DVD, CBD.
So Laurence, can we end on this piece? I'd love to hear a little bit about what the fruits of your labor have been here. Like, what have you seen working with discipline, working with releasing desires? How has that created fruits in your practice or your life?
As in, so when you say fruits in my practice, results, like benefits that I've noticed?
Benefits.
Yeah, I think that, well, certainly in terms of my practice, I've seen, because I guess at the beginning of the year, I went, okay, I'm not going to have any alcohol and I'm going to avoid sugar, because they're two things that I enjoy. And so let's make myself uncomfortable. And I recognized that they were essentially barriers that were getting played up. So I was like, okay, as we were saying before, if I don't address them, then my training's kind of half wasted in a sense, because it's always just going to channel into those. So by avoiding those, I've certainly seen more of a, I don't know if contentment is the right, like a satisfaction and that's applied certainly in my training and in life, I suppose, as well. But certainly in the training, it seems that I'm able to have got a more, I wouldn't go so far to say stillness, but more stable. It's not getting, the brain has learned over time that plating up that impulses in my waking life, my day-to-day life, doesn't trigger any impulses, positive or negative. Right. So it's like, by curbing that level of activity, it seems to have been able to apply to the training. But whether I would have had that same progress had I not done that and still drinking and eating sugar, I don't know. But it's certainly a benefit.
How difficult is it going to be when you get back to Australia over the break?
Oh, like I will try to put it in moderation, but if we're accepting potentially a regression. However, I'm also in seriousness open to the possibility that potentially I may have changed in that time period.
That's good to be open to.
Yeah, you know, and
it is possible.
And dreading the potential that maybe I, like, you know, as tends to happen in this practice, maybe you start to have a drink and you don't feel great from it.
Yeah, what if it's not part of you
Right.
anymore?
I mean, suicide could be an option at that point.
Or homicide by your friends, like in Australia, we're not gonna recognize you anymore.
It would be the kind of fitting another deprived enjoyment that's taken from you from the process. But I've seen that apply to other aspects. Coming back to your question, Dan, I've seen that apply to other aspects and the bigger aspects. Is that the impulse doesn't gain as much momentum. Those thoughts do not gain as much momentum in my day-to-day life, and so it's just a level of simplicity in terms of the mind, which makes it sound like I'm a cheap farmer like that. That's for sure. Like it's not at that degree, but it doesn't.
but it's still
It's just
significant.
yeah. It's a little bit more towards neutrality, perhaps.
Did you say you're more present for your life?
Certainly when I'm not drunk.
Or drunk on desires?
I think you get rid of. It's probably allowed me. You know what? It's probably allowed me to get rid of some white noise. So yeah, I'm maybe a little bit more present because those impulses and thoughts don't riddle your mind so much. Because I probably just to make it clear is it's not just like sugar and the alcohol, but that then bleeds into any other desire that comes up.
Yeah.
You know, which might be I want to get on social media, or I want to research this surf equipment and look at that and, you know, like get a dopamine hit from that. You know, it's like, and I've seen my mind move to other areas to try and get dopamine hits.
Yeah,
That's
right.
for sure.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
big
yeah.
thing
It's-
it does. Yeah.
yeah.
The whack-a-mole syndrome.
Yeah, totally.
The what?
The whack-a-mole.
Guacamole. I thought. Like what's guacamole?
Whack-a-mole. There's a thing in arcades. They have these little moles pop up and you hit them with mallets.
Okay. Guacamole.
Whack-a-mole.
Oh, okay. I thought first it was guacamole.
No,
Then I
not the
was like
guacamole.
whack-a-mole, and then he said
Whack-a-mole.
whack-a-mole. Okay,
Whack-a-mole.
okay. Like, ooh, I was really.
It doesn't
not
come up
good
through
at
that hole, so it chooses another hole to come up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
it. Oh. Oh, come on.
We can leave that one there.
No.
So yeah, I think that and that's why I find that understanding the brain aspects of willpower fascinating, because I've always observed that when you're disciplined in one area of your life, it bleeds over to the others. Yeah. And so that is certainly an area that I see, because like it just means that you're more focused, more disciplined. Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's fantastic. Do you want to leave with a statement or something?
Something profound.
Profound jewel.
No, in seriousness, I think that because it's a tricky fucker, you know, like I think whenever we're trying to work on these things, it's super tricky, and by no means do I fucking claim to have figured out. Like I'm pretty sure 12 hours after like coming back home, I'm going to like enjoy. I mean, it's probably just because we can't get proper booze in this country makes it a lot easier, to be honest.
That's the real.
But I think that it's starting small with the things, you know, it's like I'm big on making pragmatic steps with stuff. And I think if we're talking about moving past desires and having discipline and executing willpower and kind of moving towards your greater goals, understanding why you're doing that is the first critical step, and really digging into something that is meaningful for you. And it's then going keeping that front of mind, and it should be so meaningful that you don't have to work to keep it front of mind.
Right.
And then you set your life up so that you can execute it properly, so you don't do things that are going to have you in easy temptations, you know, like for instance, it's easy, you guys don't, for instance, we go the alcohol thing, it's like no one's drinking, so it's not hard to avoid.
Yeah,
like that's
right.
the easiest thing to avoid, because no one's sitting around going, hey, do you want a beer? Like that might have been harder in those initial stages, like you've got those first couple of weeks to get over that first hump. So you want to make sure you minimize the resistance that's there, so you don't have it in the house if it's food or whatever else. But then you just start on whatever small incremental steps are to, this is how it seems to have helped me, and it seems to when I'm helping clients with behavior change and dietary changes, which is a lot of what I would do. It's like start with small achievable steps that can be done, and then understand that by building up that willpower and that ability to not give in to that impulse will then give you more strength to then add and build up resisting on stronger impulses, I guess, you know. And so maybe don't shoot for the stars and try and go for the big hard one first. It's like build up, start small, and then it'll progress over time.
what is your guilty most pleasure these days? I know what it is, and I want you to say it like your Friday night, like wild delight.
Oh no, you're thinking of something else. My guilty pleasure of indulgence:
Yes.
sparkling water with lime.
And what temperature is the water?
Yeah, it's cold.
Oh,
I'm
it's
not
cold.
fucking about. I'm giving myself cold. You know, sometimes just out of sheer forgetfulness, I let it sit for too long, and it gets like more room temperature.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm giving myself some kind of leeway on the temperature.
And I think it connects also with Dan's example of the waters being still. The fact that you're getting sparkling.
Sparkling.
It's
It's
not
exactly
really wrong,
I'm-
man.
I've still got a long way to go.
Yeah.
A long way
Okay,
to go.
I'm gonna ask you a question that we asked all the others that have been here. Like we got some surprising and interesting answers. So, who's your most favorite and who's your least favorite person in the school? Come on.
You
say
two.
no to that
No.
face.
You two, and you can figure out which one is
one?
which.
Oh, who are you, King Solomon? wise answer.
Thanks for coming on the show, Lawrence.
Yeah,
thanks
thank
for
you
having
very
me.
much. And to all our listeners, as usual,
Yeah.
you can write to us, tell us what your desires